Something new at Monza this weekend, an all-new series, an all-new category, because GT2 as a brand is back. The Fanatec GT2 European Series kicks off here for two 50-minute races. It is the first step for the revitalised GT2 concept. It's aimed, if you like, at the gentleman racer, the cars with lots of power but not that much aero. And we have a 12-strong entry this weekend, although more teams, more drivers looking at joining in as the season goes on. So you can anticipate this will become a very strong series with Audi, Porsche, KTM, Ferrari, Lamborghini all represented on this grid. And you know it's good when Stéphane Rattel himself is one of the drivers taking part. He shares the LP Racing Audi with his neighbour, Luca Piri. That's going to be a car starting on the second row of the grid. David Addison with you for a 50-minute race. Mandatory pit stop between 20 and 30 minutes. It's an 80-second pit stop to do the driver change. And as in all of these cases, standalone qualifying sessions to determine the grids for races 1 and 2. So the cars making their way up onto the grid. Pole position, having gone to the high-class racing Audi, the R8 LMS GT2, that Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson share. 81 is the PK Carsport Audi of Peter Guelinx and Bert Langin, a driver, of course, who has been a Spa 24, a Zolder 24 winner, but goes back to the FIA GT days of Vipers and Corvettes with largely Anthony Kumpen. But Bert Langin is certainly going to be a driver to keep an eye on. So too is Anders Fjordbach, because he is a very experienced campaigner of both GT and of sports prototypes, having been racing in America in the IMSA WeatherTech series, having raced in the World Endurance Championship, in NASCAR, Euro NASCAR Whelen Series event. So very, very experienced driver indeed. 88 there is, to start, Luca Piri, Italian GT racer, somebody else actually with the Euro NASCAR background, FIA GT racer. And as I say, he shares with his neighbour, Stéphane Rattel. The two of them, with their properties in Rome, suddenly discovered that there was a motor racing neighbour, and a friendship formed, and they've been on the sim quite a lot and have now decided to go racing together. And it's good to see Stéphane returning to racing, and he was, whisper it, one of the first drivers of the weekend to have a report against him for crossing the white line as he left the pit lane. But he was very honest in front of race director Peter Daly and fessed up and said, yeah, it was my fault. But he is going to do the second stint in this race. And the car lines up, as I say, third on the grid. There, number 7 is Christoph Ulrich to go first in the KTM, the car that he shares with Adrian Spechka. KTM with that very distinctive front-lifting bodywork. And although it makes the pit stops, you could argue, a little bit more difficult, they're done to a time, so there isn't quite the same urgency to do the pit stop. It is all done to that time itself. Right, so let's quickly go to the grid. Gemma Scott is there. So too, of course, is Stéphane Rattel.
Stéphane, there is no end to your talent, driving as well now in a brand new championship GT2.
Oh, I had to support the new Fanatec GT2 European Series and introduce you to Thomas, our partner, the founder and CEO of Fanatec. And it's a world of digital and it's a world of racing, and we are convinced, even if we start with a relatively small grid, of the potential of GT2. And I'm very delighted to be participating myself, because I think these cars are fun, they're powerful, and I think they're quite cost effective, so it should work. Thomas?
Well, have a great race, Stéphane, and Thomas, again, wonderful to see another new series joining this lineup for the weekend.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic series. I drove one of the cars, the KTM, 2 weeks ago. It was fantastic, and I can't wait to race you on track, actually.
Oh, please, I'm waiting for you. I'm doing the full season, so you can join later.
I will.
When will we see you in the car, Thomas?
Well, hopefully it's well, I still need to get the right license, but it's going to be this year, I hope.
Fantastic. Well, have a great race, Stéphane, and thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll hold you to that, yes. So drivers coming into the series all the time. So was Giacomo of Fanatec. Talk about this being a new championship and Fanatec sponsoring it. There's yet another one to come at the end of the day because the Fanatec Esports series gets underway. Double Le Mans winner Hans-Joachim Stuck is taking part in these races as well in one of the KTMs. And he shares with Chris Rosenberger. He's got KTM experience on 2 wheels, but that very distinctive crash helmet, ex-Formula 1 racer, touring car hero, Le Mans winner, and indeed one of the drivers that the crowd totally took to their hearts when he went up Chesley Walsh in the Auto Union, Hans-Joachim Stuck, ready to do battle in the KTM. That's Christoph Ulrich then, as I say, starting 6th on the grid. Stuckey is 5th on the grid. Christoph Ulrich for Sportec lines up 6th. And another of the very distinctive looking KTM crossbow GT2s, that of Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Truckenpoltz, lining up a little bit further back on the grid. There's one car missing from the grid, in fact, which is the Peter Cox and Rupert Atzberger entry. There's another of the KTMs, but that's not going to start, we understand. It's a rolling start, of course, as befits a good GT race. So very shortly, the cars are going to be released. And our first 50-minute race for the Fanatec GT2 European Series will be in business. Real mix of driver experience, good mix of car, and we've been hearing more and more drivers to come in. Some of the races taking place with regular SRO events, others dropping into other events like rounds in Germany or with French GT, for example. 1 or 2 drivers being a little bit anticipatory there. They got away before the green flag, I think, but the field going down now towards the Retterfilio chicane. So Anders Fjordbach, the man that starts on pole position, and the very experienced Bert Longchamp lines up alongside then on the front of the grid. Luca Piri will start 3rd, and Michael Vergers, runner-up in the Formula Ford Festival back in 1989. The driving standards advisor for the British GT Championship, no less, starts 4th on the grid, ahead of Hans-Joachim Stuck and Christoph Ulrich on the 3rd row. The 4th row, Jordan Witt, the quick Brit, and then number 17, Klaus Angerhofer, lines up alongside the True Racing by Reiter KTM. Then Alexis Berthet and Joseph Calado, who we've seen in the past in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and the grid is completed by Stefan Rossina in another of the KTMs. Stefan Rossina, I'm a bit surprised he's that far back, because he was a very quick Porsche racer in the German series, in Porsche Super Cup, and indeed in the GT1 World Championship. He drove in that for a time. So with his experience, you would have thought maybe he would be a little bit higher up the grid, but it's been a little while since he was perhaps an active driver, or regularly active, so maybe he's one to watch as the 50-minute race unwinds. But there is the necessity for the pit stop, and he will give that car over to Sedi Samini, another regular in the KTM crossbow battle that we've of course had at GT World Challenge Europe events in the past. So the drivers then busily trying to get the warmth into the Pirelli tyres as they accelerate up towards the Variante Ascari. Great shot, like looking down between the trees. You see how narrow the circuit feels with the Armco not that far away from the road in what is a good traditional old circuit. It's got a great character, great past, and it always gives good racing as well. So this history-making GT2 European Series event, backed by Fanatec, which has been hugely successful in the last 12 months in the sim racing world, with rigs, with wheels, pedals, you name it. Not only actually for motorsport, but also for flight simulation as well. Comes then the championship backer into the arena of real and sim racing on the same weekend. So the cars now get themselves in the 2x2 formation. 50-minute race, pit window 20 to 30, mandatory stop 80 seconds, and with, in the majority of cases, 2 drivers per car. Then, in fact, yes, it is now everybody two drivers per car. It'll be interesting to see how the second stint pans out relative to the first. So as they come now down towards the Parabolica, the blue and white high-class racing Audi of Anders Fjordbach and the very, very experienced Mark Patterson lining up on that front row of the grid. Mark Patterson, who is 69 years of age, but he's been a very, very busy racer for a long, long time. And then Bert Longchamp on the outside of the front row. Peter Wellings, who's really only started racing this year, will do the second stint. So Bert Longchamp is the star turn, as it were, in that car. Number 5 then on the outside of the second row. Michael Verkers will start in the car that he shares with Aurelius Ristica. Michael Verkers, I think, is going to be one to watch on the first few laps. Much underrated driver is Michael. Never really had the money to perhaps go much further than Formula 3, but he was a champion in LMP2 in the Le Mans Series going back a few years. Very competitive in sports cars, in single-seaters. So Verkers one to watch. Then as the cars gently make their way up towards the timing line, Luca Piri on the inside of the second row, but who is it going to be then that makes the best start? We'll see in a moment as the cars head up towards the lighting gantry. And we await the lights to change then from red to green to get this opening Fanatec GT2 European Series race underway. The timing line is at the exit of the Parabolica. The start line, where the lights will change midway down the pit straight. We go racing, some away quicker than others. Good start by Verkers, look on the outside of the second row. And the Porsche comes up level as the cars accelerate off, then down towards the Rettifilio for the first time. The line covered by Fjordbach, but Verkers hits the front right round the outside, brakes late, slows the car down, and he's done it. And there's contact. Luca Piri, I think, getting into the side there of Bert Longchamp. Bert Longchamp gets turned around, he will drop to the back, others go off in avoidance, and I think Luca Piri is in the gravel. That might deny Stefan Rattal a chance to get behind the wheel after all. So the cars power their way up towards the Curva Grande for the first time. Michael Verkers then versus Anders Fjordbach for the race lead. And because of the dramas down at the Rettifilio, so that has rather broken up the pack behind. So out wide goes Verkers. That, I think, is the recovering Luca Piri. Change for the race lead is imminent because Fjordbach has a look on the inside going into the first of the Lesmo bends there, but the Martini-hued Porsche almost fending him off. Verkers runs out wide on cold tyres on the first lap, and so Fjordbach goes through into the lead of the race. Verkers is second, and then third as the cars accelerate their way up towards the midpoint of the lap is the Jordan Witt Lamborghini. Yellow flags wave, safety car deployed. So safety car on track, and Peter Daly, the British official, calls for it, and that's the reason, because Luca Piri did indeed end up in the gravel and has to be damaged to the car, which is why he couldn't turn after the contact with Bert Longchamp, and has ended up where he's ended up. So Luca Piri off the road, safety car deployed, and the one consolation for Stefan Rattal is that the customers are still racing, even if he's not able to take part. But great shame that from the car that was third on the grid. So everybody now lines up behind the safety car, which can be deployed from the back of the paddock. There, 44 going through is quick starting Joseph Collado, who shares with the Sri Lankan driver Delantha Malagamua. Replay of the start. See that one or two were a bit quicker away than others, but Anders Fjordbach made a good start, but a really good start by Michael Verkers on the outside of the second row. So he was aiming for the race lead, but it all kicked off behind him. That's where we had the trouble with Luca Piri being a bit slow away maybe, but then trying to make up the lost ground under braking as they went down towards the Rettifilio. So have another look here. Verkers on the outside line makes the move, makes it stick, but Piri brakes very late, gets up the curb, bang, into the side of Longchamp he goes, but with damage to the suspension, it just does not want to turn there into the left-handed element of the Rettifilio and ends up in the gravel bed instead. So that was how we lost Luca Piri. This is how Michael Verkers lost the lead, because he got a little bit wide coming out of the second chicane. That put him on the wrong line for the first of the Lesmo bends, and it washed out a little bit wide. Tighter line taken by Anders Fjordbach, and so he comes through in the lead of the race. Number 7 through, Christoph Ulrich. He's running 6th. It's Hans Stuck running 5th. It's Jordan Witt running in 4th. Joseph Collado is in 3rd place. And the incident between Longchamp and Piri is under investigation. So the stewards are going to have a look at it, even if there's very little that can be done. Possibly the bite a bit anyway, because Luca Piri was the one trying to make up the place and ended up out of the race anyway. So that car is being retrieved. As soon as the road is clear, then we will go back racing, and it's going to be at the end of this lap. So the safety car is going to be in this time. So there, the yellow flags wave, but they will be brought in at the end of this lap, and the Audi versus Porsche battle then. Aurelius Ristica, who's going to take over from Michael Bergers in the second place Porsche, racer come businessman, but doesn't do that much racing these days, whereas Mark Patterson, who will take over from Anders Fjordbach, is a very, very active racer as well as businessman. And Fjordbach weaving around, trying to keep up the tyre pressures. Michael Verger's just sitting there thinking, yeah, get on with it, I know what I'm doing. And Michael does a little weave to try and bring everything up to temperature. But he's not playing Anders Fjordbach's game, that's for certain. But let's see what happens on the restart then, because the cars now come down to the right-hander of the Parabolica. Safety car is in, and Fjordbach makes a good restart. He gets away very markedly from Michael Verkers there as they head up towards the timing line. So we go racing once more. Fjordbach through, Verger second, Joseph Collado third, and then Jordan Witt is behind him as they come over the timing line. Hans Stuck fifth, then in the best of the KTMs. Christoph Ulrich is in sixth place as they come into the braking area. .33 goes through then, Anders Fjordbach powering on. And Michael Verger's coming back under braking then, because as they get to the second of the chicanes, absolutely nose to tail, those two. Battle on for third place as well. Jordan Witt there coming up to have a go, trying to find a way by. But for the moment, being fended off by the very experienced Joseph Collado just up the road ahead of him. So Fjordbach trying to get away, but Michael Vergers is staying with him, no question about it, as they come into the Variante Ascari. Is there a change for third place? Yes, Jordan Witt goes through on the inside. Gains the place then as the cars now accelerate their way up towards the completion of the lap, but a very, very good battle going on up front. You see the strength of the Audi relative to the Porsche at certain parts of the circuit, because the gap comes down at certain areas, creeps up again elsewhere, and as they turn into the Parabolica further back as well, Hans Stuck's trying to make some progress up and get something inside there of Joseph Collado. The other KTMs are all ganging up behind too. There's Ulrich and Stefan Rossina in the queue as well as they come up towards the line now. Down towards the Rettifilio, almost a touch, but Hans Stuck says, I'm coming through. And Stefan Rossina up for the back of the grid also there, trying to make progress in the car that he will share with Serhi Samini. Stefan Rossina, I said, was a long way back on the grid. Well, he is now coming good, making progress all the time here as the cars accelerate through the Curva Grande. But the gap between the race leaders, only 11/10 of a second when they went over the line. Now there is Jordan Witt up into third place now in the Toro Verde GT entry that he shares with the other British driver, David Fairbrother. And 81 is Bert Langin trying to recover. So the safety car helped him in a sense to play catch-up. He stayed on the lead lap, but what can he do now to make some progress up through the traffic? A look to the inside there against the KTM of Klaus Angerhofer. Bert Langin powers on, trying to line up to make a move, maybe coming up towards the Variante Ascari. Fastest lap thus far is Anders Fjordbach, and he is now perhaps edging away just a little bit more from Michael Vergers. Although again, different sectors, different strengths of car. Jordan Witt then up in the third place in the background, the green Lamborghini, and he's pressing on, but it is very much Fjordbach's race at the moment, because Michael Vergers, although he's close, he's not close enough to attack again as they head into the Parabolica. Challenge there, look, because under attack is Joseph Collado. To the inside line looks Stefan Rossina, and 81 Bert Langin does gain ground. Through on the inside, picks up a place. Klaus Angerhofer falls back behind him as the cars now go over the timing line, and the lead gap is 1.7 seconds. It's still Fjordbach, the quickest man in the race, to the outside line again there. Look goes the KTM, so Rossina makes his move, and on the inside line, Joseph Colado's Lamborghini has to give way, but Rosina brakes very late, too late I fear, and I reckon he's gone straight on there onto the curb. Let's have a look as Bert Longchamp wriggles his way through the chicane, but going very, very deep into the Rettifilio, late braking. Stefan Rosina, he comes out ahead, Joseph Colado there behind him, and Rosina gives back the place. So he did outbrake himself, does the right thing, so gives back the place, and then can fight again without fear of a penalty against Joseph Colado. Through goes Jordan Witt, still just being able to stay ahead of Hans Stuck, but with every passing lap, Stuckey gets quicker and quicker here. Now to the inside line goes Stefan Rosina, makes the move, and that's fine, that's all legit, and he stays ahead, and more to the point, stays on the road. So 10 minutes of the race done, and of course another 10, you get to the pit stop window, which is open for 10 minutes to do the mandatory driver change. They're all done 2 at a time, rather than what you might call a natural pit stop, a quick as you can style pit stop. It's done to 80 seconds line to line. And there is then the new 5th placed KTM, Stefan Rosina, ahead of Joseph Colado. Number 17 going through, that is Klaus Angerhofer, German bike racer, raced in the Motorcycle World Endurance Championship before coming into cars in 2008, double KTM Crossbow Battle champion. So he's an experienced peddler these days. Hans Stuck, whose CV goes on for page after page after page, but most noticeably Grand Prix driver and double Le Mans winner for the Rothmans Porsche team, comes up now towards the timing line, chasing after Jordan Witt, British GT race winner last year. Jordan, another experienced GT campaigner in either multi-mark or one-make GT categories, comes down towards the chicane. There over the timing line, 5th Rosina, 6th is Colado, 7th now is Bert Longchamp, and the Audi is creeping into the mix, isn't it? So Bert Longchamp comes into the Rettifilio chicane, inching up onto the back of the midfield battle. Number 7 through is the Christoph Ulrich driven KTM. It's the car that he shares with Adrian Spechka. And number 73, the lone Ferrari. We've not really touched on this yet, but French GT and prototype racer Alexis Berthet starts with Patrick Michelier to take that car over. So there is Ferrari out of the CMR stable, which is here running cars in GT3 and GT4. So why not GT2 as well? And actually, to be fair to Alexis Berthet, he's closing up now onto the tail of Christoph Ulrich, who is dropping away just a little bit as his stint wears on. Ulrich's another experienced driver. He's raced in the ELMS, the Le Mans Cup, in the old GT Sports Club as well. So an experienced driver he is. Right, Bert Longchamp's on his toes, and he's about to get ahead of Joseph Colado here for 6th place. Look, the Audi on the inside, no, couldn't do it. So the almost brawn-liveried Lamborghini fends him off then for the SVC Sport Management team. Joseph Colado comes through, but it won't be long, I think, before Bert Longchamp is through. Gains when he does so. 6th place, the Audi lines up on the inside line here, the PK Car Sport team. No, the car doesn't have the grunt in a straight line to get back ahead of the Lamborghini, so Bert Longchamp has to slot back in behind as they turn now through the Parabolica once more. Big flash of the lights as he comes up towards the line here. Side by side, and now down to the Rettifilio. Bert Longchamp on the outside line. He's got the move and he's got it done. Yes, perfect stuff. Bert Longchamp goes by. That puts him into the top 6, and he's not done yet. What's going to be interesting, though, is to see how the pace of Peter Wellings is in the 2nd stint. There are the race leaders, 2 seconds between them, and an incident involving number 16, Stefan Rosina, is under investigation. I just wonder whether that's the moment that he had going off the road at the first chicane, and he's being told he's got to give 1 position back, but he's already done that and retook it. So that's going to be an interesting one to debate, isn't it? So it's taken a lap or so for that to come up on the screen, but Stefan Rosina gave the place back instantly. So he's given it back, now he's being told to do it again. So it's going to be a little unfair if he's got to do it a second time, because now the gap between them is 3 seconds, so it's a little unfair. Anyway, in the meantime, Anders Fjord back 2 seconds to the good. There is the charging Bert Longchamp. So Fjordback leads, 2 seconds clear. Verga's second, Jordan Witt third, Hans Stuck in fourth. Fifth is Rossina. But as I say, this instruction to give the place back has only just appeared on the timing screen. So I suspect the team will go and discuss that. So we've already done it. Sixth is Collado, seventh is Longchamp, but we've seen that place change. So up into sixth is now Longchamp. Eighth, Klaus Angelhofer there in the KTM, ahead of Ulrich and then Berthe to round out the 10. So Anders Fjordback's advantage is now growing. The Audi, despite Michael Verga's good efforts early on, the Audi is now getting away. So Fjordback leading, he's done the fastest lap of the race as well, a 1 minute 50.053. There is Michael Verga's then in second place. Not suggesting Michael is settling for second, but the car is now getting into a rhythm, but he's not being able to bring down that gap. Michael, whose career goes back to the good old days of Formula Ford 1600, racing in the UK and in Germany. He was the runner-up in the festival. He was the RAC Formula Ford champion in the UK in 1990. That was the Premier Formula Ford Championship of the day. He went to Formula Opel and Formula 3, racing single-seaters in the States. Had to go in British GT, in the Renault Spider Cup, in Ascar, on the ovals at Rockingham. You name it, it seems that Michael has driven it over the years. These days, as I say, doesn't just race, but is the driving standards advisor for the British GT Championship. And is a very good person to have involved in that. So, of course, if he doesn't win, he's going to be in for an awful lot of stick on the 22nd, 23rd of May weekend at Brands Hatch. Out of the Parabolica comes then Anders Fjordback. So it's a dominant stint, having got himself into the lead. There's now no stopping him as he comes up over the line. Through he goes. And what was 3.3 seconds last time, I suspect will be even greater. There is Michael Verga's through, 4 seconds now. And that last lap from Fjordback, 1:49.8, so the best lap of the race, markedly better than his own earlier best. Jordan Witt third. Now, what's he lapping at? A 1:51.4. No, he's not yet catching Verga's. But the Jordan Witt Lamborghini, very much the best of the rest at the moment. So Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, KTM, Audi is the top six, because Bert Longchamp, running in sixth place, chases after the KTM of Stefan Rossina now. Out of the Curva Grande then goes the 7th and 8th place battle, Klaus Angelhofer on the tail of Joseph Collado. Now here, the next of the KTM fights, Hans Stuck versus Stefan Rossina. So the double Le Mans winner comes under attack. Stefan Rossina, the Slovakian driver, there behind him as they turn through the second of the Lesmo curves. Can Hans Stuck fend him off? He will hand that car over to Chris Rosenberger. Whereas for Stefan Rossina, the less experienced Seti Samini will take over number 16 KTM. So Rossina dives towards the inside. Yes, he does get through. Rides the curve a little bit. Hans Stuck, to be fair to him, gave him racing room, but Rossina was utterly committed to that, and it's a good job there was a gap, because he was coming through, come what may. While they squabble, so Bert Longchamp, number 81, is getting closer and closer in the background. Down to the Parabolica they come once again, but there, delayed after its first corner spin. 81 Audi is getting quicker and quicker and closer all the time now. Over the timing line once again. So Bert Longchamp, whose lap times are, what, 1:51.0, so he's, lapping quicker than many of those ahead, if not the race leader. So there should be the scope for a bit more in terms of gaining places before he gets to his pit stop, and I would imagine that he will do the lion's share of this race in order to give that car a good chance, because although Peter Wellings has done quite a lot of miles, having been racing in Abu Dhabi in the 24-hour series already this year, he's less experienced a campaigner than is Bert Longchamp, for example. So there is the Audi closing up all the time. It's an interesting shape compared to the GT3 R8 LMS, isn't it? It's almost like the Honda NSX, but turns through the first of the Lesmo bends. Bert Longchamp hustling on. you can see that although the cars do have wings, there's far less aero than in a GT3 car, for example. So, echoing what Stefan Rattel was saying on the grid, they are fun to drive. They're big, powerful, brutish cars, but with the ability to slide as well. Jordan Witt into the Variante Ascari. British GT race winner for McLaren from the 2Cs team last year. And there, although Hans Stuck has lost a place, he's not giving up because Stuck is behind him, but he spins. Hans Stuck behind Rosina, loses it coming out of the Variante Ascari, coming unstuck, and Hans Stuck, a rather red-faced 70-year-old Hans Stuck, will rejoin, but place is lost as a consequence. I was trying to say that he wasn't giving up in his efforts to get back onto terms with Rosina, but then he drops the lot coming out of the Variante Ascari. So Hans Stuck hopefully will get going again, but I think the engine has stalled on the exit of the Variante Ascari. Here it is again, so close to the back of Rosina. He turns out of the final part, and Stuck is already sideways, and that's one slide that Hans couldn't control. Around it goes, and does he hit anything? Oh, he does, yes. So as the car slithered across the grass, clattered the guardrail. We'll see whether he does rejoin from there. He has not yet got across the line. No, the pit window is open, but we might well have a stranded car. So if you're back to Verkers now, it's 5 seconds. This battle is between number 44, Joseph Collado, and number 17, Klaus Angerhofer, for 6th place, promoted with the demise of Hans Stuck. And there, oh dear, is a rather battered KTM heading back to the pit lane, but that whack into the guardrail has done for the right-hand side suspension, I wouldn't wonder. So the pit window is open. For 10 minutes, the window is open. Cheeky look to the inside line there comes from Klaus Angerhofer. So Joseph Collado, bit by bit, falling back, isn't he, through the pack here in number 44. So one of the later entries into the series for this open ground. But it's good that he's here. Joseph Collado, experienced driver, as I say, from Lamborghini Super Trofeo. And the Sri Lankan driver, Dilantha Malagamur, will do the second stint, and he too is maximising the amount of track time available. Having made the effort to get over here from Sri Lanka, do as much racing as you can, make the most of it. So Collado hugs the inside line to try to defend from Angerhofer as they come down to the Parabolica, but it's the wrong line for the corner, so the gap might well be open on exit because he's going to drift out wide if he's not careful. He's just about able to get the clipping point. Off the Parabolica they come, up towards the line, but Collado's going to go for the pit lane now and let Dilantha Malagamur get behind the wheel. So that gives Angerhofer a clear ride in a sense. He comes through then, over the line, and down the pit road comes number 44. So the first of the scheduled stoppers, if you like, Joseph Collado. Hans Stuck is in anyway, but that's with the damage, and I think therefore out of the race. So Dilantha Malagamur will run across. Ordinarily, there would be lots of his fans and his family here, lots of Sri Lankan flags flying. Sadly, we don't have that luxury. There you've got the number 33 race-leading Audi. Anders Fjordbach goes through, and Michael Verkers then in the Martini-liveried Porsche in second spot. That car from the Speed Factory Racing team, and Aurelius Rusaker will take it over. So Verkers then up towards the Variante Ascari, one of the Pro-Am entries. There's Pro-Am and Am in this, and it is the Am class currently being led by Klaus Angerhofer in 6th place overall, with the pit stops now starting to shuffle the order a little bit. There turns number 5 then, Michael Verkers. So how long before we get these two leading cars into the pits? Well, Fjordbach goes through again. And what about Michael Verkers? Again, because he's the quicker of the two, you can expect that he'll stay out and try and maximise the opportunity to make a difference in that car. The team manager and drivers, Luca Piri and Bert Longchamp, have to go to the stewards after the race and discuss that first corner incident. There, into the race comes Dilantha Malagamur, needing to be careful not to drive over that white line. If you do, you get in strife. So Malagamur waits until he gets to the end of it, then can move across and take the line for the first corner. Fjordbach to Verkers then is 6 seconds, 1 to 2. Fjordbach in the Audi, Verkers in the Porsche. There's the leader. So for the high-class racing team, the Danish team, Anders Fjordbach comes up towards us, ready to turn into the first of the two Lesmo curbs. Behind him in second spot, Michael Vergers then. Going great guns in the Porsche, but just not being able to match the ultimate pace of that Audi. So half distance pretty much reached. Pit window stays open for another 5 and a bit minutes as the Porsche goes through there. As you might expect, makes a great noise, that car. Now there, 81 Bert Longchamp, 5th, still yet to pit. And Anders Fjordbach now comes down towards the right-hander of the Parabolica. Lead gap confirmed in a moment. It is now, as Michael Vergers goes through, 7 seconds. Jordan Witt goes by, and then Stefan Rossina should be 4th. Into the pit lane has come Christoph Ulrich. So the KTM down the pit road. And that's going to drop now. Number 7 with Adrian Speshka at the wheel of it. Down the order a little bit, but all of this will unravel at the end of the window. There is 33 Anders Fjordbach then, out of the first of the two Lesmo curves, and some of them are leaving this pretty fine, aren't they? The quicker driver staying in for a long time before they give way to their co-driver, but by having a short window it means that there's more track time available to both drivers, and therefore the slower driver, makes a bigger difference, has a greater input. Right, so Fjordbach through the Variante Ascari. There is Michael Vergers then, 7.4 seconds back. Vergers way out wide in the background, up onto the curbs. So number 44, Joseph Collado, gave way to Patrick Zamparini, who replaced Atlanta Malagamur in that car, forgive me, and that's 8th now after its pit stop. So we'll see what Zamparini can do in his stint as Anders Fjordbach ticks off another lap. So he's got about 3 minutes of the window still open, and a lap is 1 minute 50. Michael Vergers does not take the risk. He comes in then. So out of second place, in comes the Porsche. So Vergers down the pit road. Also in is Jordan Witt to give way to David Fairbrother, who stands there just at the top of the shot. 73 Ferrari going out, so Alexis Berthet and Patrick Michelier swap over, and there is number 5. So Michael Vergers in. The rest of the cars cycling back out. That was a, dare one say, white line cut by that KTM as it rather tottered across the white line. Admittedly, it's got a lot of rubber down on it now, but he's still there. Right, 33 then, Anders Fjordbach staying out and has got just under 2 minutes. Right, we have the driver change, or having it. Some fuel goes into the Porsche. Job done. And so now the driver change can be completed. Michael Vergers helps the larger frame of Aurelius Rustecker into the car. This is the car they've been chasing, the Audi, in the capable hands, it's got to be said, of Anders Fjordbach, who's done a really good job here. Mark Patterson, the South African, who's done much of his racing initially in America, but most recently in Europe. He will take it over. The Speed Factory Racing Porsche sits in the pit lane, 80 seconds line to line. And there is 33 then, which should be in really, because there's less than a lap time left in the pit window. In he comes. So Anders Fjordbach arrives now in the pit road to give way to Mark Patterson. Rustiker accelerates away and heads onto the white line. Was that a cut? Discuss. Anyway, he's stuck behind the KTM as they come now down towards the Rettifilio. Number 16 is the KTM just up the road ahead. Sergio Salmini now into the car as 33 arrives. Anders Fjord back to give way to Mark Patterson. Waits for the cockpit to receive him and folds himself into the car. So Fjordbach out, in Mark Patterson. And there is Rustiker on the back of Salmini now, which means that they've traded places, I think I'm right in saying, in the pit stops. Yes, they have. So this is currently a battle for position. Bert Longchamp is in as well, as Andreas Rustiker tries to get up the inside there of Salmini, but he can't do it going into the first of the Lesmo curves. Good fight this is going to be between the KTM and the Porsche. Both drivers relatively inexperienced, although Rustiker has done more racing than has Salmini, but not for a while, it's got to be said. And now the Porsche tries to line up to use its grunt in a straight line. Comes up to the outside, but that's going to be the wrong line for the Variante Ascari, and he gets a bit of a squeeze anyway onto the green. So as the grass is mowed by the Porsche, so Rustiker has to slot back in behind. Away goes Mark Patterson then. So he's going to come out with a huge advantage, it seems, over the Porsche. But did have to refuel, as you saw, however. It was having some fuel put into it, so that might account for why that was a longer stop. Anyway, back on track goes number 33. A minute and 33.8 seconds, that pit stop, whereas for the Porsche, a minute and 45. So yes, a lot of time lost in the pits, but an even slower stop for David Fairbrother and Jordan Witt, like 2 minutes, that stop. Well, we're looking at 80 seconds being the regulation time. Right, so Patterson will lead, and up into second now, their look is Peter Gwellings, having taken over from Bert Longchamp. Third, right on his tail, is Sergio Salmini, number 16, and then it will be Aurelius Rustiker in the Porsche, down in fourth place. So that car, by taking on fuel, has lost out on the pit stops, and the real winner has been Gwellings, because after a good recovery by Bert Longchamp, he's up into second place and actually clear of a battle for third that's going to delay the drivers involved, because at the moment Salmini is being very good and defensive and therefore able to keep at bay number 5 Porsche of Aurelius Rustiker, but he's not being able to really go after Gwellings. Maybe now, as he gets into his rhythm, he is just going to be able to edge away from the Porsche, but the longer he has to defend, the longer he has to battle, the less chance the KTM driver, Sergio Salmini, has of being able to go after Peter Gwellings in second place. Now, Gwellings is a relative newcomer to racing, so how he's going to fare here relative to those around him remains to be seen. But right now, Peter Gwellings is doing a good job hanging on to that second place. There's the Porsche then, and the gap is down, as you see, second to third. So Gwellings versus Salmini. There is Rustiker in fourth place as they come down now towards the Parabolica. So this will be the end of lap number 16. In the meantime, Mark Patterson is away and gone. His advantage is over half a minute now. So with a good pit stop and slow stops from others, plus, of course, the fact that the car has 2 very quick and experienced drivers in it anyway, he's just building and building and building on the earlier pace. This is the fight for second, third and fourth, so we may have lost a lead battle. We've gained a good 3-way fight for second position. Over the line comes Peter Gwellings. Always tough to be in the second stint, but as he goes by, so Gwellings then is hanging on to the position to the inside line there. Rustiker again challenges for third. He's going to challenge for second, is he? Into the chicane. More drama then as they go into the Rettifilio. This time, thankfully, contact avoided against the number 81 Audi of Peter Gwellings. Bert Longchamp in that car turned around earlier, but the one that's lost out is Salmini then, who drops back into fourth place. So there's the KTM in fourth now. And what can Rustiker do about 81, the Audi there just up the road? Peter Gwellings then turns through. So the two of them running now second and third. Audi, Peter Gwellings, Porsche, Aurelius Rustiker. And all of a sudden, Sergio Salmini, having lost that place, has lost a huge chunk of time, almost like the KTM has got a problem, because the fight seems to have gone. He's not been able to fight back at all, and having been right there, part of that battle, half a lap ago, it all looks like a rather distant memory now, and he's lost a good chunk of time in that first sector. Possibly getting caught up in the fun and games at the first chicane affected life somewhat, but even so, the KTM has fallen back quite a long way, as so too David Fairbrother after that slow stop down in 6th. So he's now after the similar Lamborghini in the hands of Patrick Zamparini, but Aurelius Rustica comes out of the Parabolica with only 15 minutes of the race now to run. Heads up towards the timing line, will go through to put another lap in the book. Hard on the brakes, down towards the Rettifilio once again. This is lap 18. Peter Gwelling's doing a good job here, keeping Aurelius Rustica at bay. And can Stefan Rosina come back at them then? Because in the first sector of that previous lap, he lost ground, lost a little bit more in the second, a bit made up in the third sector, but his lap time was a 58, so he has lost a big chunk of time. It's going to be hard, I think, to make that up, assuming the car is well. Down he turns into the second of the chicanes. Samini behind there, Aurelius Rustica. But Peter Gwelling's being able to maintain that advantage. Fastest lap of the race to Fjordbach, and as Fjordbach in this car that now Mark Patterson is behind the wheel of. So along the fast straight down to the Parabolica comes Mark Patterson out front, absolutely on his own. And it is now very much his race to lose. He just cannot afford to make a mistake. But the 69-year-old has it absolutely under control. There for second place, Peter Gwellings, again under braking, being caught by Aurelius Rustica in the Porsche. But through the corners, it looks like the Audi has the advantage. That's what we were sort of seeing with Fjordbach and Verkers earlier on in the Audi versus Porsche battle. So now Peter Gwellings starts to edge away. Aurelius Rustica using the grunt of the Porsche to try and close that gap as they come down into the Parabolica. Next up, Sedi Samini in 4th place, and there in 5th is Patrick Zamparini, who is just quietly getting on with the job here. The order has shuffled around him since he got into the car, but he's inching up onto the back of Samini. Let's just see whether that might be on for a change before the end of 13 more minutes. So through goes Sedi Samini. His last lap was a 54.9 and Zamparini a 52.3. Yes, it is on. And so is the change for second place as Rustica goes through under braking for the Rettifilio chicane. So he's got the job done, goes through nicely on the inside. Number 5 Porsche then gains ground, gains a place. But 24 seconds adrift of Mark Patterson is Aurelius Rustica. His last lap was a 55.2, actually quicker than Patterson, although you could argue that Mark is driving well within himself. And 25 seconds effectively of a gap is an awful lot to try to bring down. But now let's see whether Rustica can do it. Or at least what he can do, how much of that he can claw back before the end. Is Gwellings going to come under attack by Samini again, or is now Patrick Zamparini going to make his mark? He looks on the inside line to the first of the Lesmo curves, can't do it there. But the Lamborghini now crawling all over the back of the KTM. You would argue, I think this is not a bad debut for the new Fanatec GT2 European Series. It might be a smallish grid to start off with, but it's been a very interesting race, and it's not done yet as the second stint pans out here. Speed builds as they go down to the Variante Ascari once more. And so as they brake for the corner, there you've got the KTM going through. That is Sedi Samini, right up behind him, Patrick Zamparini. The lightweight KTM ahead of the Huracan. Big Lamborghini presence here this weekend, with as well as GT2, GT3, and also the one-make Super Trofeo kicking off. Now Zamparini looks to the inside line, thinks better of it, slots back in behind as they come into the braking zone now. Those two make the run now up towards the timing line. The Lamborghini looks like it's got the speed, that's for sure. Pulls up to the inside line, can't go through there either. Now, what are their lap times like relative to Peter Gwellings? All of a sudden, it looks as though Gwellings is the one now starting to lose fight, doesn't it? Because his lap times are going up, having lost second place. and the gap is coming down between him third and Samini fourth, who in turn is bringing Zamparini with him for company. So 10 minutes just over to go. Third, fourth, fifth, all bunching up nicely now. There is Zamparini into the second of the chicanes, back onto the power. He had a look here a lap ago, comes up to the inside line to challenge against the KTM. Is he going to make the move? Again, he thinks about it. Decides at the last moment not to force the issue, but oh so close that time. Where does he try next? Let's see. Is it going to be on the run up towards the Variante Ascari? A good exit here means he will have the speed, he will have the momentum, and try to carry that now all the way down to the next braking zone. Mark Patterson's advantage, still 23.6 seconds. It's certainly good enough despite the efforts of that man in the Porsche, Aurelius Rustica. Again to the inside line goes Zamparini. This time it's on. He goes through, takes the place. On the inside goes fourth. So Patrick Zamparini goes through and hustles on now. So as the cars come down towards the Parabolica, to the outside, to the inside goes Simini to get the place back. Under braking he goes through, but he's going to go wide into the corner, leaves the door wide open. Zamparini goes through, big slide from Simini as he tried then to tighten the line, but the back very nearly got away completely. He catches the slide, but in so doing loses time, definitely loses the place, and ends up yet again a little bit distant in fifth position. So Mark Patterson leads the way, 22.8 seconds, 9 minutes are on the clock. Aurelius Rustica is second, Peter Grelix is third, coming under attack, run away from Patrick Zamparini as they come now into the Rettifilio chicane. This was Samini, who suddenly got a tow, got late on the brakes, went through, but there was no way the car was for slowing down when he wanted it to. Turned into the corner as he accelerated, suddenly the back snapped away from him. He saved it, granted, but even so, time lost, and that costs him a big chunk, and he's down in fifth place, just ahead of David Fairbrother now. So, all eyes on Zamparini. What can he do to try to gain a place? There is David Fairbrother, who's a long way back relative to Serhii Samini, and you see behind him is Ariane Speshka in the KTM, almost getting caught up there with number 17, the next to the KTMs of Trunkenpolz. Hubert Trunkenpolz, another of the KTM Crossbow Battle drivers, the one-make series for the KTMs. And by being delayed there at the Rettifilio, he's lost 2 or 3 lengths on exit. So we are on to lap 21, and the race leader, Mark Patterson, well clear of Aurelius Rustica in second place. The gap at the start of the lap was 22.871 seconds. This is the battle for 6th place then. David Fairbrother, experienced UK racer in things like the GT Cup, the Volkswagen Racing Cup as well, but in Porsche racing he's done, and occasional GT4 Europe outings. There, through on the inside for 3rd place goes Patrick Zamparini. That did not take him long at all to catch and pass Peter Grelix. So the 81 Audi's had a bit of a snakes and ladders race up and down the order, but what a drive by Zamparini. He's absolutely flying now. Up into 3rd place he goes, over the timing line, and now he sets off in pursuit of Aurelius Rustica, and he's lapping quicker. Now Zamparini is 2.8 seconds back. He's taken 7/10 out of Rustica on that lap. It's a big ask in 7 minutes, especially as Grelix is still challenging him down at the Rettifilio. But as they turn right, then left, back onto the power, the number 44 Lamborghini looks like now it's going to be able to edge clear. They're going through number 17 then. That is the Hubert Trunkenpolz driven KTM. And David Fairbrother is coming under further pressure here in the Lamborghini. Trunkenpolz dives to the inside of Speshka. He's going to go through, and that was a good pass actually. I thought for a moment it was going to get messy on the exit of the corner, but it's worked for him. So Trunkenpolz goes up into 7th place. That was the car that Klaus Angerhofer was doing a good job with in the first stint, as there you see 2nd and 3rd coming down to the Variante Ascari. In the first sector then, the gap between them had gone up a little because the quicker of the two was Rustica. In the second sector, let us see, because they're almost at the timing point now, who is the quicker in sector 2? It is definitely Zamparini, so the gap's coming down. Porsche versus Lamborghini. But with 6 minutes on the clock is Patrick Zamparini going to get close enough before flagfall to really make a difference here? Let's see. Aurelius Rustica charges along. Coming now into the parabolica. They turn into that right-hander and get back onto the power now, up towards the timing line. So there through is Patrick Zamparini. The gap second to third is 1.9 seconds. The last lap for Zamparini 9/10ths quicker, and we've got time for 2 more laps, I would have thought at least. So yes, this should be on, given the pace that the Lamborghini has got. In the AMP Cup, he is the class leader, so wherever he finishes, as long as he does finish within this top 3, a class win is going to go the way of Patrick Zamparini. In the SVC Sport Management entered Lamborghini, AMP Cup leader, but he wants to be second overall against Aurelius Rustica, and he's closing up, as you see. Fourth in the background is Peter Gwellings, who's another of the Pro-Ams. The second of the AMs is the Ulrich and Spechka KTM. Third in the AM class, Trunkenpolz and Angerhofer's KTM. So there the Lamborghini turns through. You can see the energy that is being put into the car by Patrick Zamparini, up wide over the curb in the first sector of the lap. Actually, he's lost half a second, worryingly, to Aurelius Rustica. There is the Lithuanian racer, keeping at bay for the moment at least. Patrick Zamparini. They make the climb up now towards the Variante Ascari, and as they do so, riding the curb is the Porsche. Zamparini hustles on behind him in that third spot, and he's much, much closer now. So again, just like we've seen elsewhere in this race, the Porsche has good segments and not so good segments, and the Lamborghini really good through the Variante Ascari. So the gap is down in that second sector by over a second, 1.3 clawed back in sector 2 alone, and that means that Zamparini, with time I would offer you for 2 more laps, is going to be able to have a red-hot go now, coming out of the parabolica down towards the Rettifilio chicane, really quick through the right-hander, under the huge rear wing of the Porsche, nose to tail past the pits. Is this where Zamparini makes his move? Let's see. Comes through. And as the 2 of them accelerate now down towards the Rettifilio chicane, hard on the brakes. There's no chance there for Zamparini to make a move, but he's only 0.183 of a second back. There's time for this lap and 1 more. Porsche accelerates out of the chicane. Speed building now into the old Curva Grande. So Rustica now feeling the pressure. Zamparini up behind him. Rustica, in fairness, has done a good stint because the car rejoined 4th. He's battled his way back into the mix, but he might now lose a place because right there behind him is Patrick Zamparini. Turn right now through the first of the 2 Lesmo curves, and as the clock ticks on down, Zamparini goes to the inside line. And through he goes, made that look easy. Zamparini pounces, passes the Porsche. So Patrick Zamparini goes up into second place. Really good stint this has been from the AM class leader. And Patrick Zamparini accelerates on. Now further back for 6th, there's David Fairbrother just ahead of Adrian Spechka here. Up to the second of the chicanes they turn. KTM on the back of the Lamborghini. Interesting switch for Jordan Witt to come into this series for this year, but he and David Fairbrother certainly enjoying the cars. Had been talk that maybe the BOP haven't been that kind to the Lamborghinis, but it's not suggesting that for Patrick Zamparini's pace as the 6th place battle continues. 2 minutes are on the clock, as you see now, for 4th and for 5th. Peter Gwellings being reeled in by Serhi Salmini. So the Audi just ahead. So remember, that's a car that's been up the order, down the order, back up. Now he's dropping down a little and goes through less than a lap time left in the race. But given the way that Mark Patterson is going, need to keep an eye on him relative to the clock. He is 19.5 seconds ahead of Zamparini, so the gap is coming down. Not for a minute suggesting he's going to be caught, far from it, but it's interesting that it has come down the way it has. Gwellings under attack, side by side at the chicane, just sticks out his elbows in time to repel the challenge of the KTM. Gwellings then hangs on to position. not only has Simini not been able to get by, but because of the heavy braking to avoid contact, so he loses the momentum, loses a little bit of ground. 1 minute remains of the first Fanatec GT2 European Series race from Monza, and it is Mark Patterson leading the way. The gap that he has over Patrick Zamparini is coming down little by little. This is the fight going on for 4th and 5th places now. Peter Gwelings ahead of Sehdi Samini. So they power their way downhill. Now Mark Patterson comes into the Parabolica, and he's going to have to do one more lap, isn't he? Because unless he slows right down, and he could afford to, I think he is going to get to the timing line with another lap to do. Now, 15 seconds on the clock, breaks the beam, goes through, so he will go round once more. And that, in a sense, is very good news for Zamparini, because it gives him another lap to try and bring down the gap. It's also good news as far as Simini is concerned, but he's got the job done anyway. He's ahead of Gwelings as they dive into the Parabolica. So Peter Gwelings' efforts to defend the place ultimately don't work out. He's going to fall to 5th as they come by. The lead gap is 18 seconds now. Over the timing line goes Peter Gwelings, accelerates his way down to the Rettifilio. Now, what about David Fairbrother versus Adrian Speschke? Because the Lamborghini and the KTM are absolutely nose to tail. David sticks out his elbows, makes sure that Lamborghini is as wide as possible to keep Speschke at bay. But now David Fairbrother runs a little bit wide out of the Parabolica. The gap opens up on the inside line now, and it means that as they come out of the Parabolica, they're going to be absolutely level, aren't they? With on the inside line then, the KTM, that of Speschke, goes through. But has the Lamborghini got more horses at the end of the pit straight? It's got the line, possibly, to do the outbraking. Back it comes, and yes, David Fairbrother stands his ground, retaliates, and retakes the place then. So Fairbrother goes by, picks up the position, and comes out ahead. So it is going to be a win for Anders Fjordbach in the first stint. He did a great job. For Mark Patterson, who's done the driving in the second stint in this first Fanatec GT2 European Series, the first of the 2 races at Monza this weekend. And Mark Patterson for the high-class racing team accelerates out of the Parabolica. There is the checkered flag, and Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach make history, winning the first Fanatec GT2 European Series race. Second, after a very, very good drive, will go the way of Patrick Zamparini and Joseph Collado. Patrick Zamparini comes through after a great charge, and what's the gap at the flag? 16.6 seconds for 3rd place. Aurelius Rustica taking over the good work started by Michael Verkers in that car, and then for 4th place it's going to be Sehdi Samini and Stefan Rossina. Peter Gwelings and Bert Langin taking 5th. The margin between those, just 1 second at the very end of the race. So great battle they'd had. Now, what about 6th? Because David Fairbrother is keeping Adrian Speschke at bay, but only just. And again, the KTM comes up to challenge on the outside of the Parabolica. Speschke tries to go round the outside, but it's the longer line, it's the slower line, and he gets run out wide. So that does not work for him as they come now up towards the line. And so David Fairbrother and Jordan Witt are going to hang on in there just to round out the top 6, getting that place back, because Speschke just had his nose in front last time when they went past the pit. So 6th goes the way of David Fairbrother and Jordan Witt at the end of a very lively first race. It may not have been the biggest of grids, but it certainly gave us a good race, and more of the same tomorrow in this new Fanatec GT2 Championship. There, number 73 is set for 9th place. Patrick Michelier brings the Ferrari home that was started by Alexis Berthet. 488 Challenge, strictly speaking, not a full-blown GT2 car, but it's good to have it on the grid, and it whets the appetite for the drivers to come back and do more with GT2 machinery in the fullness of time. So, a winner for high-class racing, Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson in the very, very well presented Audi. Very impressive drive by both of them, and 2 experienced drivers using that experience to very good effect to come through to score that race victory. So the victorious Audi makes its way with Mark Patterson going offline to get the pick up to help with any weight and any ride height checks that may come. Behind him you see Patrick Zamparini, who in a sense you could argue is the driver of the day really out of that. Let's look at the results then, with the stewards wanting a word with a couple of people at the end of the race. Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson win the first Fanatec GT2 European Series race from Monza ahead of Joseph Collado and Patrick Zamparini. Michael Verges and Aurelius Rustica third from Stefan Rossina and Sedhi Samini. Longin fifth with Peter Gwellinks, Jordan Witt and David Fairbrother sixth with Christoph Ulrich and Adrian Speschke seventh. Klaus Angerhofer taking 8th place, helped by Hubert Trunkenpolz, Alexis Berthe and Patrick Michelier, 9th. Retirements, Hans Stuck and Chris Rosenberger denied a drive. Luca Piri out at the first corner. Stefan Rattel denied a drive. So there into the winners area comes Mark Patterson. So an excellent drive by Mark in that second stint. Takes the position there for second place. Patrick Zamparini arrives and Aurelius Rustica third. So you can certainly argue that three of the top brands of GT racing represented well. KTM fourth and second in class as well, KTM for Adrian Speschke, Christoph Ulrich's entry. But Mark Patterson will be very pleased with that. Maybe he didn't have quite the workload as certainly early in the race Anders Fjordbach did, but Mark did what he had to do, bring the car home, and of course he will start tomorrow's race. So a very happy Anders Fjordbach goes to congratulate the American South African driver. Mark Patterson clambers from within the car. But both of them have got experience not only of GT3 machinery but also of sports prototype type races, LMP cars. The interesting element of this might be to learn how this aero, or lack of it, compares, whether it's more fun, whether it's more of a challenge. So Mark Patterson congratulates Joseph Collado and Patrick Zamparini. And Aurelius Rustica out of the Porsche, a happy man, his work done for the day. So an interesting mix of drivers. We've been saying some good CVs from GT racing, from international racing, and some recent converts as well, having driven a desk for a while and now being able to indulge themselves going racing. So Mark Patterson takes out his earplugs. We'll get his mask in a minute and then we'll try and grab a word with our race winners. Gemma Scott is down there with Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson, GT2 European Series Race 1 winners.
Fantastic result.
Yeah.
First winners of the GT2 Chapter.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It really is, yeah. So happy to be here. It's fantastic. Yeah, exactly. First race, first victory.
Very, very strong, huh? In the beginning, little bit, quarter of a second, half a second, and then as the others got more tired and made more mistakes, boop, 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 boop. I think he gave me 8 seconds before the other car came into pit. And then when we came out, we were well ahead, 24.
Yeah,
I think we ended up about 20, 21, 22 seconds.
But did you feel that you could sit back and relax a little bit then?
Well, they obviously don't want me to prove I can do another second quicker. I was doing 1 and 2 seconds quicker on average, you know, on the good slide in the practice and FP and all that. But 54s was fine for a guy who's almost 70. I just wanted to see what Hans Stuck's time is.
Congratulations, a fantastic result. Well done, boys.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Do you want it back?
So Mark Patterson, age 69, Hans Stuck, age 70. That was the point of all of that. And he and the young whippersnapper, Anders Fjordbach, celebrate a race win. So, very happy drivers celebrating a win, but I think everyone pretty much enjoyed a good race with somebody, a good battle, with the possible exception of Luca Piri, who was, of course, off at the first corner. But the Fanatec GT2 European Series, I'm sure, will grow and grow and grow, and we'll look forward to seeing how it evolves over the course of the season. There is also the Rebellion GT Series, which is what used to be called the GT Sports Club, so that's catering for the GT3 cars for the gentleman racers as well. But this new breed of GT car, lots of power, limited grip, has had a very good debut indeed. So this is the winning car, the Audi. And again, Stefan Rattel being able to talk to manufacturers and persuade them to build cars for this new set of regulations for this new category. Audi one of the first, along with Porsche, to commit, and the Audi comes out victorious in this opening race. So there is the presentation area. Drivers make their way in. You don't have podiums as such. You are called forward, you get your trophy, stand against the backdrop, and move on in these COVID-aware times. Good fights all the way through the field, but Patrick Zamparini might be super sub, but he certainly did a good job in his stint to get second place in the Lamborghini that he shared with Joseph Collado, the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo GT2. Right there, the race winners arrive in the presentation area. Just go back nearest to us. There's Michael Verkers arriving. Race director Peter Daly, a long, long time ago, was Michael's spotter in Michael's ASCAR career, and now he has to adjudicate upon the man that is his driving standards advisor for British GT. Thankfully, of course, Michael drove a faultless stint and doesn't raise anyone's eyebrows, but he and Aurelius Rustic are coming home in third position.
Especially in the smooth, fast corners like that.
Mark Patterson talking about his stint as their drivers arrive from the classes, because there's the AM as well as Pro-Am elements to the GT2 concept.
Well done.
Well done.
Yeah, congratulations.
So there, the drivers step forward to receive trophies with the AM and Pro-Am elements to the race. And for the KTM squad, Klaus Engelhofer and Adrian Speshka. KTM drivers. Now there you have the Porsche crew of Aurelius Rustica and Michael Verkers. Third place overall in the Speed Factory Racing Porsche. All smiles underneath the masks. Impressive trophies as well. There, the race winners step forward. So Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach head towards the presentation area. We might have got things slightly jumbled in order here, but anyway, there are the race winners, no question about that. Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach win the first Fanatec GT2 European Series race. So for the high-class racing team, Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson take race honours here. And as the drivers await their turn to be called forward, discussions go on about the first race for these cars and what has to be done in tomorrow's race. As there you have the KTM crew stepping forward. KTM, you might argue, an unusual brand to have in GT2 racing, but it's been getting on quietly with building initially GT4 cars and cars for its own one-make series, and now these much more powerful versions for the GT2 concept. Klaus Engelhofer and Hubert Trunkenpolz then take their trophies. As I say, there is the AM class to look for as well as Pro-Am. And then the final drivers step forward to head towards the backdrop, ready for the photographs, and there Adrian Speshka and Christoph Ulrich celebrate their class results as well. So put the Luca Piri and Stefan Rattel Audi back into the mix for race 2. It's going to be well worth watching. The AM winners, Joseph Collado and Patrick Zamparini, step forwards. Patrick in the distinctive overalls, and Joseph Collado, who was a regular class winner in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo last year, takes his trophy for second place, and a great drive by Patrick Zamparini. The class winners celebrate for the SVC Sport Management Team. Well done, Patrick Zamparini and Joseph Collado, the AM class winners in the Fanatec GT2 European Series. It was a race that began with a bang. A good start made from the second row by the Porsche of Michael Vergers, then who came charging around the outside of Bert Langin. Luca Piri, not quite so quick out of the blocks, but he was determined to try to claw back lost time under braking, and as he did so, he got involved with Bert Langin, turned him around, and that did for Luca Piri's suspension. The car did not want to turn into the second part of the chicane, and he ended up stuck fast in the gravel. Battle on for the race lead. Michael Vergers was ahead, but not for long, as he ran a little bit wide through the Lesmo curve, so Anders Fjordbach came through on the inside. Safety car deployed on the first lap to get rid of Luca Piri's Audi, and as the race resumed, Joseph Collado came under attack, and we lost Hans Stuck after a big slide that sent the double Le Mans winner into the barriers. Stucky to the pits and into retirement, as then Joseph Collado came under attack from number 17, Klaus Angerhofer, who eventually relayed Hubert Trunkenpolz, the KTM, down the pit lane. Michael Vergers came in to give way to Aurelius Rustica, and the Porsche was refueled that cost it time. Anders Fjordbach stayed out for as much as he could, and eventually gave way to Mark Patterson, as then Sedi Sarmini tried to fend off Rustica. He also got involved in a battle with Patrick Zamparini. Zamparini went through, and Sarmini had a big slide, as then Zamparini made his move against Rustica. That gave him second place, and there was no stopping the Lamborghini in terms of getting away, but he couldn't catch the race leader, as we then had the Peter Gwellink's Audi busy battling with the KTMs, and also a good fight raged on between Adrian Tepeshka and David Fairbrother. A race win, though, for Anders Fjordbach and for Mark Patterson, and a class win, second overall, Patrick Zamparini and Joseph Collado in this first GT2 European Series race.